not wet, so still not raining.
Here's the oldest one. He's 19. He's a great grandkid. He's 19. Here's Sebastian. The first one's Michael. Sebastian's 13.
You can move your table.
Yeah, Vincent. He makes some weird faces from time to time. He's 9. Alistair, 6.
Well, now there's chairs against the table.
Isn't
that far?
Army's 12. I like all of them, but 19 last Saturday.
All righty, let's jump in and get started. We're going to be looking at Exodus 20 through 40 tonight, and so we got a lot to cover. Looking at Christ through giving of the law. We see Christ in the blood and the sacrifice. We see Christ in the tabernacle. We see Christ in the priesthood as the high priest. We see Christ as a mediator and leader of God's people. And we see Christ throughout of course, the Old Testament. But everything that we've been seeing in our readings, if we look closely, we're going to find that you have this picture of Christ being the central part of our study and of our reading. And so let's jump in. Chapters, I don't have slides tonight just because I'm doing a little extra thing here with some media and trying it out. So you guys will just have to take good notes. And if you miss something, we can go back over it. So as we jump into Exodus chapter 20, we see, of course, it's the Ten Commandments and the on the Mount of Sinai. Really, chapter 20, we're just dealing with God and Moses. God's given Moses these commands. We see, though, that God has drawn here, and commands is the key word, by the way, before I get too far away from that. You find that in verse 6 of Exodus 20. But showing faithful love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commands. We have the 10 commandments that are listed throughout the chapter from verse 3 through 17. So those are going to be your key verses. But when we consider life and righteousness, we need to understand that life and righteousness doesn't come through the curse of the law. Life and righteousness only comes through the grace of God that is found in Jesus Christ our Lord. When Jesus said, I have come to fulfill the law, what he was saying is, I have come to bring righteousness and to give you life because the law could not do that. And that's where the Pharisees, the Sadducees, talked about it this morning in Sunday school. We've seen it as we've been preaching through Mark. We see where they get hung up on their hope is that they will be able to abide by the law enough that they would be in God's good graces to be saved. That is not the case. The law shows the curse. And so in Exodus chapter 20, we see here God gives his commands to show them their inability to live up to God's standards. Because just these 10 commandments, we can't do it. We break these commands on a regular basis. He's like, well, I don't break all of it. It doesn't matter. Jesus said if you broke one, you broke them all. Right? The judgment for the commands, breaking the commands before God, is death. It's separation from God. See, God cannot communicate, God cannot be with a people and be in relationship with a people that are not perfect. So God's saying, here's where you fall short. In these 10 and the hundreds of other instructions that we have throughout the scriptures. So we see here that you have to have an understanding of what you've done wrong. We see this in our court system. When there's a charge brought up before you, this charge is going to fall under a judicial ruling, and there's going to be a penalty that's linked to that. What is the penalty for disobeying God? The wages of sin is death. So here's where we have death come in and understand why there is death. So chapter 20, anybody have anything in chapter 20 that, Steve?
Just an observation in verse 21. The people remaining standing at a distance as Moses approached the total darkness where God was. It just struck me, how could there be total darkness in the presence of God?
That's a good question. And so, well, I mean, here's the thing, because although you have the presence of God, you don't have the glory of God illuminating in this. So
He was
It is
hiding.
because his face was made illuminated because of
When
his
he
glory.
left.
later on, at this point, you see them going up into, and I would say where Moses was, there probably wasn't darkness, but this is what they saw from the foot of the
They
mountain.
couldn't see
Yeah.
what was going on.
So they wouldn't see just like on the Mount of Transfiguration, they didn't all see Jesus transfigured. The ones that were down on the mountain, they would have just seen whatever. So I'd say, God had Moses tucked away where nobody could see him anyway. But that's a good observation, though.
I have a similar question for when, this is way back in Genesis, but when Abraham makes the covenant with God, it's like a terrifying darkness or something. I don't remember how they describe it. It's like a something type of darkness when God comes down to make the covenant.
Yeah. And maybe some of this darkness is we're interpreting the God shielding his glory from the people. And if God's shielding his glory, you're going to see, we see that at the crucifixion. We talked about that last
So
week.
this is probably a different kind of darkness than we think of when we think of evil.
Probably, yes.
It is a God-created darkness.
Right, yeah. And maybe somewhat of what we see when a storm comes. Cloud, you have darkness, the sun is still shining, the clouds are just blocking that light. So,
Okay.
good questions. As me and Steve were talking earlier, it's good that we're reading through, but it's also better that we're coming together and we're discussing, because we learn so much more when we do that. Alrighty. Well, let's look at chapter 21. And we see here the content of one, or the title of chapter 21 is the laws concerning people. Servants, particularly injured people. We see here the key word is judgments. You find that in verse 1. And the key verse is Exodus 21:12. Whoever strikes a person so that he dies must be put to death. And so, we've heard that term, an eye for an eye. So here's the meaning that we get from this chapter. Don't get caught up in that's not right that, somebody die if they accidentally killed somebody, or let's not get caught up in our human particulars, but let's look at what
was the word?
Judgments.
Judgments.
Let's look at what the bigger picture here. God has given life through his creation and through procreation, and God, through his law, seeks to protect life. And you think about our laws today. Our laws are to do what? Protect. God wants to protect us through the laws. but spiritually he wants to protect us by saving us from the judgment that comes from breaking the laws. So we kind of see this in Exodus. A lot of times we jump over this meaning, and it is vitally important that we understand that these laws are to help the people have a standard to live by. But the foundation of these laws is to know how to treat people. You just can't kill anybody that you want to kill because you don't like them or you don't agree. Cheryl?
And I'm saying the one that they said has to pay with death because he killed somebody else. Not anybody could just go kill him. It has to be the judgment of the community and the government at hand that says you kill that guy, you have to be stoned.
Yeah.
So, but it's not like, vengeance or
Not
anything.
one person has all the
Right.
power. Right. Yes, ma'am.
I've got a lot of problems with this chapter.
Okay.
And the problem I have is, okay, this is from God. This is God saying these things. We talk about sanctity of life. I knew you in your mother's womb and all these things. But slaves are not treated the same as other people here. And God is saying this.
Yeah.
I mean, like in verse 20, when a man strikes his male or female slave with a rod, and the slave dies under his abuse, the owner must be punished. Now, it doesn't say put to death.
Mm-hmm.
However, if the slave can stand up after a day or two, then the owner should not be punished because he's his owner's property.
Mm-hmm.
So if I knock you out and you're only 2 days ill, nothing is even done to you. I mean, this is God saying this. I do not understand this. Because this whole chapter is about slaves, and every time the slaves are not given the equal with everybody else.
Right.
And this is God saying
God,
this is what God is saying. Where is the sanctity of life? I knew you in your mother's womb, and love your neighbors yourself. Treat even foreigners in your land like all these things. It's all stacked against them, and it's also stacked against women too.
Right.
Yeah, well,
Against women.
I mean, yeah, this was how people acted at the time, but it's reinforced because of this. This is why it's that way, because this is what God is saying. It's hard for me to understand how God is sanctioning it's okay for slavery, and these people, don't worry about it, they're not on the same level as you, because if one of them, it's not an eye for an eye, it's just, if they can get up and walk after 2 days, we're not going to do anything. You don't do anything.
Yeah.
How do we reconcile that?
Well, and I think the reconciliation, because this is something that I think we all, when we look at it in light of what we know of today as the inhumane treating of other individuals, and so here's the conclusions I draw with this, is that none of this was God's intention whatsoever. Like, because we see how God created things. So, and I might be wrong in this, but God is giving these laws based on what man is doing. And so this is a cause and a result of sin. I don't necessarily think, because God's not okay with any of this.
So why doesn't God just say, it's wrong to treat your slaves this way, don't do this.
Yeah.
It's wrong to treat your women this way, they're equal to you. Because all this stuff is like, when a man sells his daughter as a concubine, she can't leave as the male slaves do.
I know. Yep.
God's saying this. Why doesn't he say, women should be treated equally? Slaves or men are just as good as the rest of you, and you can't go around and beat them up and just go with no... I'm sorry, I have a lot of trouble with this.
Well, and that,
Testament.
and that is, I mean, I guess I don't have a good answer for that, because we don't know, we're not God. The laws that we have are based on man's fall. We go back to Genesis on that. And so, God's given a leeway. Just like, why did God allow Cain to kill Abel? He could have stopped that. God could have stopped a lot of this. But he's letting man kind of do what man wants. But yet
He gives us free will.
but yet he's still, these laws that we see are based on what man is doing, not what God would correct. Because God is saying all of this leads to death. This is the depravity of mankind. It's not right. We don't like it. It's not good. Could God have stopped it? Yes, he could have. Why didn't he? We don't know. So that's where, when we look at all of these laws that we're going to have, from all of these dealing with people and things, it does look a little skewed. Like, God, why don't you just say, no, don't do this?
Yes, why don't
You know, why? And again, when God is giving these commands to help guide them and lead them, and maybe it's because he already knows what they're going to do. And so he's based on what they're going to, I don't know, I'm just drawing conclusions because we don't really have a good explanation. But what we do have is God doesn't like any of this from the very beginning. God doesn't like it all. So it's kind of like God's having them adjust to what they're doing in the large scale of things. But I don't think it's fair to God to say, well, God, why didn't you just put an end to this? Well, in order to put an end to this, he'd have to kill everybody.
Well,
And he later on does.
We had a flood.
Yeah.
But he could put it in the laws and say,
Don't do it.
You shouldn't do it.
But they're going to do it anyway.
Well, does that mean you don't tell your kids not to do something wrong, even
That's
though
right.
you know they're going to do it?
Yeah. Well,
You would say, this is what I don't want you to do this. This is not your thing. And you know they may disobey.
they're going to go ahead and do it.
But
Yeah.
you've given them a standard. This is what I want from you.
Yeah.
I want
So,
to-
no, it's good. No, it's a good question, because this is where we go to, we have a lot of people that say, well, a lot of people down through history, well, see, God approved of slaves. I don't think God approved of any of this. And I stand on, God doesn't approve of slaves and mistreating other people. This has come because of the fall of man. Steve?
God did give the laws. We just looked at many of them there in the previous chapter.
Yeah.
He told them
Yeah.
what's right, what to do, what not to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Society, because of sin, has not lived up to that. He knows that. But he has chosen, when sin came upon the scene, that he is not going to remedy that sin, but by one way. He's going to send his son, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That's the answer. It's hands off as far as people sinning their sinful lives. But he's adding in this chapter here and beyond, he's adding organization to life and minimalizing some of the what would be more heinous outcomes.
Yeah. Joe?
I had, Jethro had told Moses last time, he says, you need help with all this judging. So they choose men. They choose some men to do that. And now God says, and this is what you're going to use to judge them.
Yeah.
I mean, they have something written down now,
Right.
because Moses wrote all this down.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's not a good answer, but
Oh, no,
Right.
talk about Jethro.
So I ask
Mhm.
questions here, and this one kind of makes sense because there was no bank systems, social service systems, and a lot of people put themselves into slavery. They sold themselves so they didn't starve and
Right,
go hungry, and it was never meant to be permanent or dehumanizing form of slavery that the world eventually went
Right.
to, and they were supposed to be let go after a period, and even if their debt wasn't fully paid off, and they were also to be given provisions.
Yeah.
So even though God allowed it, He allowed it for a particular purpose, and then, but not to be treating them the way
right.
the
Yeah,
world eventually did.
our view of slavery is much different than, when you really look at the Old Testament slavery. I mean, some of it was, inhumane, but a lot of it was kind of like what we understand today as being employed, I mean, you go to your employer. I remember having some employers that they said whatever they wanted to say to me. Now, of course, they couldn't strike me, but some of them, I mean, I guess they could if they wanted to. But what would happen, you know? So yeah, it's not right, but nothing man does is right. And so as they're going through this, and really, again, this is Moses and these leaders that are going to be looking at all of this. I mean, for God to truly do it right, he would have to say you need to kill anybody who breaks the law. I mean, that would be the only way God could make it right, which then everybody would
Be dead.
You know, I mean, and so it's hard for us to fathom this. It really is. Like, I mean, we're like, I wouldn't want to live back in these days. I wouldn't want to live in the Old Testament days because I like living under grace. You know, they didn't have grace back then, and so they had all of this that they had to deal with until Jesus come. I've come to fulfill the law. And then you notice there's a change in the New Testament to all of this that happens. So yeah, it is very unsettling and unnerving to see what's going on. And I mean, short of annihilating everybody, which he did that once with the flood, what is God to do but let them try to navigate their own sin and minimize not that it's right, you know. Because I'm with you, Jeannie. I'm like, I'm looking at this as a pastor. How do I explain this to somebody who doesn't believe in God? How do I explain this?
One of the takes that I have on it, Scott, is, I mean, when we have to look at, we have to understand that we don't see the big picture as well like he does. So like when we come across things like I was just reading about Hagar and her being pregnant in the wilderness running away from Sarai, and the angel comes back and tells her to go back, but nowhere do we hear anyone intervening with Sarah. You know what I mean? Like no one tells Sarah, hey, stop beating your slave. Like it actually tells Hagar to go back and deal with it pretty much, and that she'll be blessed out of it. Yeah. And so it's really confusing to read something like that. But it's in the end, we have to remember that God sees the ultimate picture. He knew what Ishmael's descendants were going to be and that they were part of his plan, even if it, you know, looks bad. It is part of his plan to reach his ultimate goal, right? I mean, the same thing comes down to with Jesus heading to the cross. He used people, he used their wicked intentions, and sometimes he says or commands people to do things that we don't always understand, but it leads to his ultimate goal.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very well said. It's very unnerving now and frustrating to look at it because we're looking at it from a human standpoint. And, you know, that's the problem. We're humans. And so God had to give that. So I know it's not a real good answer, but, you know, I don't know that there is a really good answer. And that's a question we ask God when we get to heaven. Okay, God, you're going to have to answer some stuff for us now that we're able to see you face to face and be in your glory. And, of course, then we'll probably understand it. Anyway, you know, at the end of the day. Anybody else have on 21?
It's a horrible comparison here, but, you know, I don't think it was, you know, it was never originally intended for it to be that way. You know, God never intended divorce to happen either. It's like,
but he gave provision for it. Yeah.
You know, humanity is going to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put these laws against it so, you know, it doesn't get out of hand.
Yeah, some type of control, you know, and all right. The verse, so it didn't really answer your question, Jeannie, but I don't know.
You're not God.
Another answer. I don't know another, because, you know, I think we've all had that frustration of, okay, God, this is hard. Mine is, this is hard for me to explain. Like, there's no way to explain to make you look good, God. And then God reminds me, you don't have to make me look good. You just proclaim my words. Okay. 22 doesn't get any better, right? You have judgments on the rights of property and crimes against humanity, which we've already seen that. Again, key word is going to be judgments. It's going to be the same. You're going to see that all the way throughout this. You do have a different word. You have these are the ordinances that you are to set before them. And so we see here some of the instructions come as an ordinance. Your strong verses here are verse 29. You must not hold back offerings from your harvest or your vats. Give me the firstborn of your sons. Verse 30. Do the same with your cattle and your flock. And then verse 31. Be my holy people. You must not eat the meat of a mauled animal found in the field or throw it to the dogs. And so, again, going back to the holiness that God looks for in us through Jesus Christ. The only way we can be holy. We're not going to live up to any laws or any standards. And we're going to break them. And it's going to be unjust and it's going to be unfair until we live in holiness. And so, our attitude to mankind should be based on how God sees man, how we see God's connection with man throughout the scriptures. And so if we live that way, we don't have problems with any of this, right? These are judgments that are handed down, but if you live according to Christ's likeness for us today, I don't have any problem. I don't have any problems mistreating somebody because I view everyone through the eyes of Christ, or at least try. Even those who don't deserve it. And isn't that what God's called us to do? And so, anything on 22? I think it's pretty much, we're going to have a lot of repetition, so I want to try to get through these because I think we're going to slow down. We might not get through all this, which I'm not quite sure how we'll handle that if we don't. But anyway, 23. We have judgments again. These are instructions on the some of the Sabbaths and the festivals. And so, unless you have questions on that, I don't want to get bogged down in all that. We've actually studied that in the past. Your strong verses, or your verses that you want to take note of, is verse 7, 12, 20, 22, and 25. And we see here the idolatry forbidden. We see here in the restrictions on following after, those in false worship or pagan worship. All of this is stuff that they're going to run into if they're not already participating in now. And so God's giving them, this is what's coming down, and this is what I expect you to stay away from. And so that brings us to 24. Anybody have anything on 23? Steve?
One verse that struck me was 25, which says, "Serve the Lord your God, and he will bless your bread and your water. I will remove illness from you. No woman will miscarry or be childless in your land. I will give you the full number of your days." Yeah. That's a big promise.
Sure. Yeah. Follow me. And isn't that what God still promises us today through Jesus Christ? And that's part of the Abrahamic promise. I will bless you. I'll bless those who bless you. I'll curse those who curse you.
Well, in the end there, verse 30 says, "I'm going to drive them out little by little." So that way the land won't just become wild again. And but it says you can't make covenants with them or their gods. They can't let them remain in your land. Don't serve their gods. Don't do that.
Don't follow.
You're going to.
Yep.
But that's a real important part of the rest of the story.
Yep. Cheryl.
Okay, I like verse 5. Your enemy's donkey. You have to help if that donkey's in trouble. You have to help that donkey, even though he's your enemy's donkey, and he'll ride the donkey that'll hurt you, but you have to help the donkey.
Yeah. All right, anybody else in 23? Let's move to 24. You got the covenant ceremony here. Your key word is worship. And this is... And this is, of course, looking at the building of the tabernacle and what is going to happen revolving around the tabernacle. We have our key verses here is verse 8. Moses took the blood, splattered it on the people, and said, "This is the blood of the covenant that the Lord has made with you concerning all these words." And we see in verse 17, the appearance of the Lord's glory to the Israelites was like a consuming fire on the mountaintop. And so we see here the blood and the presence of the Lord. What do we have when we get into the New Testament?
Blood.
The blood
Presence.
and the presence of the Lord through Jesus Christ. Yep. And then now through the Holy Spirit today. Right. We see here in the New Testament, the writer of Hebrews 10:22 says, "Let us draw near with a true heart and full assurance of faith, with our hearts sprinkled clean from an evil conscience and our bodies washed in pure water." And that moves us then to 25. And we see here God's directions concerning the tabernacle or the beginning of that. We see here in verse 9, he says, "You must make it according to all that I show you, the pattern of the tabernacle as well as the pattern of all its furnishings." So your key word is pattern. Are we going to pattern our lives? Are we going to pattern our worship? Are we going to pattern everything that we do and we say to the holiness of God that has been shown to us through Jesus Christ, our Savior and Lord? And so we see here what the tabernacle really shows. It shows the ability to come and approach the presence of God. Worship through request, through prayer, through hearing His Word, through petitions. We see here Christ in several different things within the tabernacle. There's some colors here and some things that I think we need to take notice of in the author that I'm using here. When it comes to Christ, we see gold. Gold is throughout the tabernacle. This tabernacle, I looked somewhere, I didn't do it for this study, to see how much this tabernacle would cost in today's terms, and it is astronomical, right? So the gold shows the deity of Christ, or type of His deity, and we see that throughout, right? Gold is deity. Significantly, most of our wedding rings are pure gold, right? Or of a precious metal. And what does that signify? Something special as we're coming together, making a promise. God has made His promise through Jesus Christ. It's just beautiful. Silver. When we think of silver, we see redemption. So gold, we have deity. Silver, redemption. Brass, the brass knuckles of the law. So what are we going to think of with brass? Is judgment. Blue, we think of heaven, or a heavenly origin. Purple is royalty. Scarlet, atonement. These are some key colors throughout the tabernacle. What is the tabernacle representing? I can just stop here for the rest of the night. What's it represent? It represents Christ. I cannot come to the presence of God unless I come through Christ. You couldn't commune with God unless you came through the priest, through the tabernacle, and that priest even could only come once a year into the Holy of Holies, where the presence of God would come between the ark and the cherubims of the ark. This is powerful. And many times we lose this picture of how holy God is when it comes to tabernacle. 25. Anybody question, Steve?
Verse 2, a pattern for giving in today's church. You're to take my offering from everyone who's willing to give. There is no church giving or church edict about you're supposed to give so much a month or so much a year or whatever. It's for those who are giving according to how they're willing to give.
And what God has commanded. Right? And he's given that to us. Oh, very good point. What's that? No, I didn't get to that yet. Key verses is verse 22. How about just one? And verse 9 in pattern. Oops, wrong mouse.
What were Boone's color again?
What's that?
Colors, just.
Oh, the colors?
Yes.
Okay, so you have gold for deity. Got that one? You have silver for redemption. Brass for judgment. You have blue for heaven, for heavenly origins. And purple for royalty. And then scarlet for atonement.
Thank you.
All right.
And it would cost roughly $3.5 million just for the gold overlay.
Yeah, that's why I said it's astronomical when you put
That's
everything
not-
together.
The acacia wood just from
That's just
that
the overlay.
region.
Yeah,
not the labor and
Sure.
everything.
so I mean, you're talking probably trillions of dollars is what it would cost today. I mean,
It wasn't a permanent fixture.
It wasn't.
You picked it up and moved it.
Yeah.
You moved.
Yeah, I mean, it's really mind-boggling when you think about it. I mean, the ark was mind-boggling. The tabernacle, I mean,
They're nomads, basically.
Yeah.
You know?
it's I mean, it's just beautiful.
I love looking through the design and just how he includes in everything the ability to pick up and move. You know what I mean? Like he didn't just design it and then say, oh, figure out how to move this. Like everything had the movable qualities built into it. It's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, when you really study the tabernacle, it's really unfathomable.
I just couldn't help but think of some practical things on these rods that are going to be carrying these different elements, like the
Table.
table
Mhm.
and so forth. It's covered with gold leaf, and how in the world can you carry that without messing up the gold leaf?
Right, yeah. I mean, it's just, but you follow God's pattern, and what happens? Everything stays intact. You get outside of God's pattern, think of the fingerprints. I've got kids. There's not anywhere in my house where you don't see fingerprints, right? And imagine.
You touch it, you die. That's the way you handle that.
Yeah.
Especially the stainless steel.
Yeah, I mean, it's all. All right, 26. We've got further instruction, but we have fashion as our key word. Verse 30. You are to set up the tabernacle according to the plan or the pattern for it that you have been shown on the mountain. So you've got the fact. This is the way you are to do it.
That's why he was up there for 40 days and 40 nights.
Moses had a lot to do. Yeah. And we see the importance of the tabernacle. Notice as they went from place to place, they would be identified by what?
The tabernacle.
The tabernacle. They knew that they were the people of Israel because of the tabernacle. People know that we are children of God. Why? Because of Christ. The picture of the Old Testament tabernacle. The beautiful picture here. And all the majesty and the holiness that goes along with Christ. Anything on 26? Again, a lot of this we read. 27. We have the brazen altar in the court, where he's really kind of getting into now some of those essential elements where the sacrifice is going to take place. And of course, we know that God held that in very high esteem. Your key word again is pattern. Verse 9. And your strong verse is verse 20. You are to command the Israelites to bring you pure oil from crushed olives for the light in order to keep the lamp burning regularly. You know anything about lamps that burn oil?
You got to clean them a lot.
Well, you got to clean them a lot. If you use kerosene, what's going to happen? you're going to have a lot more smoke. If you use a pure oil, essential oil type of a thing, you're not going to have all that smoke. Why did he command the pure oil? It's going to be pure. Little things like that we would never think of. That God doesn't want any impurity in and associated with the tabernacle. We also see this as God bringing purity through Jesus Christ. The altar and all the sacrifices and everything, God's showing that I'm going to do this through my Son. I'm going to wipe all this out. It'll be one sacrifice. It's going to carry for all eternity. Anything else in 27?
Aaron and his sons didn't get very much sleep.
No, they didn't.
They had to tend these lamps all night.
Yep, they had to make sure they were going. And now, granted, they would burn, but you had to make sure that they didn't go out.
What happens if they did?
Yeah.
It could be dire.
Yeah. They didn't. They didn't. All right, 28. Now we're getting into the priests. So you have the priestly garments and all that goes on with that. We see here in verse 1, the key word, we're going to say is ministry. Have your brother Aaron with his sons come to you from the Israelites to serve me. Ministry is serving God, and they're going to serve him as priests. And notice it had to be Aaron and his sons. It just couldn't be anybody. Right? This was very important succession of God had set aside this specific tribe. Why? Only God knows, but we see the connection really through Moses. And really that's, I don't want to get too caught up in this, again, because it takes a lot. But when you think of Moses, the leader, Aaron, his brother, right? They were connected physically, biologically. We have a connection with God through Jesus Christ, our Lord. It's the only way you can come. The only way to be a priest is to come through Aaron, and you're connected to the leader Moses. The only way to become a Christian is to come through Christ, and you're connected through his Holy Spirit to follow God. So you kind of see how everything God did pointed to Christ and what he was going to do for us. Everybody got ministry? You got your verses 29, 41. Steve?
I'm in the breast.
28, good.
Breast piece. Verse 18, talking about the stones.
Mm-hmm.
It lists the diamond. I find that hard to believe that that's the true translation of the word, because you go down in verse 21 and it says each stone must be engraved like a seal with the name of the 12 tribes. You can't engrave a diamond. No way to do it.
Yeah.
So, there's other translations like Jasper is one that is given for that particular word there.
Yeah, I don't know that I've...
New Living Translation has another stone that I don't remember the name of.
Yeah, I think that's a CSB translation because I don't remember.
Well, diamond is in many of the more contemporary translations.
Yeah.
But I just want to see how it could work.
Yeah. A different type of I don't know. Is it a different stone that was from that region that they call a diamond that is morphed in, something different for us today? I don't know. Something to do some more research on. Anybody else on 28? All right, everybody up? All right, 29. We have the consecration of the priests. You have the key word consecration. You see that in verse 26 to ordination, which is another word for consecrate, and setting aside. And so our verses here are in dealing with the sacrifices. Verse 18, burn the whole ram on the altar. It's burnt offering to the Lord. 45, I will dwell among the Israelites and be their God. And 46, and they will know that I am the Lord their God, who brought them out of the land of Egypt so that I might dwell among them. I am the Lord their God. See, other pagan religions had sacrifices, right? And we say, well, this is inhumane to animals. Why would you do that? Why would God allow that to happen? You know, He created them. Again, there's a penalty for sin. God created everything perfect and everything whole and pure. When sin came in, that changed it all. And so this sacrifice is showing that it's a messy, bloody
Stinky.
deal, stinky to be consecrated before God. Therefore, Jesus came, did it once for us. And I'm glad. I've said that when we studied through this a while back and went through Leviticus, and I'm glad that Jesus did that, because that would be a whole different type of being a pastor. They think it's hard to get pastors nowadays. But anyway, so we have the consecration, the importance of that. Aaron and his sons had to be consecrated. They had to live by a holy standard that stood above. And when they didn't, God removed them. Steve?
Verse 4 demonstrates that early on, where they have to be washed with water before they begin.
Sure.
And that's a concept, we see portrayed today.
Yep. Yeah.
Spiritually.
Yep. And it's part of that consecration. So we're at 29. How about 30? Anybody else have anything in 29? We have 14 minutes to get through this. So, chapter 30. We've got the altar of incense. And so we're really looking at the praise to God and just how God views our worship in large scale. Again, your key word can be incense or worship. I like worship because that's what I picture. Verse 7 is your key verse for the word. Aaron must burn fragrance, incense on it. He must burn it every morning when he tends the lamps. And so every morning we get this picture of Aaron going, and we see him, tending the lamps, burning the incense. Every morning we give a praise up to God. Too. And at twilight we give praise up to God. And we see the key verse is verse 30. Anoint Aaron and his sons and consecrate them to serve me as priests. The fire and the incense together brought this fragrance that we see in the New Testament as the Spirit coming and being that fragrance that goes through us, through our prayer, through our intercession, and through our lifestyle. Questions, comments? Steve?
Verse number 12. When you take the census of the Israelites to register them, each of the men must pay a ransom for his life to the Lord. Interesting comparison there to what Jesus has done for us.
Yes, absolutely. And again, you can't put a cost, you can't put a price on salvation or redemption. Everything God had them do was to show them it's impossible. It's impossible to live up to these things. But through Jesus Christ, He fulfills that and He makes it possible as we follow Him and as we serve Him. Anybody else in 30? 31. God gave them the pattern, and then He helped them in bringing it to fruition. However, man's going to be man. So God writes down these commands, writes down everything, and God puts everything in place. God told Moses what to do, and then He equipped him and He showed him right down to who was going to do it. We see the key word here in verse 3 is workmanship. I have filled him with God's Spirit, with wisdom, understanding, and ability in every craft. He had already given the ability for the men to do this.
And he provides for the church.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yep.
the preachers and the evangelists and the teachers and all
Yep,
that.
everyone. And what is this? It's a sign, verse 17. It is a sign forever between me and the Israelites. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, but on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed. That's referring to observing the Sabbath. And so we see from working, you're going to do all this in the tabernacle, but you're going to take time to rest, to just relax in me, focusing on God. And so we see here the importance of the Sabbath. And of course, all of the blessings that God gives us as he calls us to serve him. Anything else in chapter 31 that jumps out? Chapter 32. We see, of course, God's given Moses all of this, and what's happening? They're starting to do everything before they even know what the rules are, right? And they're already breaking them.
Do we have any, does it say anywhere how long Moses was up there this time? If it was
40 days.
40 days.
This was 40 days also?
Yeah.
I mean, I know he was later.
Yep.
Well,
I got my
40
number.
days seems like a short time for people to turn to idol worship.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
My
But
gosh.
we remember that they just picked up and left Moses, and now they think Moses is dead.
Jeannie, how long would it take for you to be out of the classroom at school for the students to start doing something?
But yeah, you're right, Jeannie. I mean, it's just like it's
I mean,
almost,
they just saw him part the Red Sea and send
Mhm.
manna and do all this
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Why would you think this golden calf would have any? And Aaron was right there with him.
I know
That's
it.
the thing
Aaron was the leader.
he was,
He
yeah.
said, "Give me your rings."
Yeah.
He tells Moses
Let me show you how to do this.
Oh yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
I like his explanation later.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it just jumped out. I mean, like, whoa. It was amazing, Moses. You wouldn't believe it. It just popped out. You know, it's kind of like the kids when you know that they did something. I didn't do that. Yeah, I know. And so, but yeah, you're right. I mean, it doesn't take, but think about it. How long does it take us to get disenchanted with God? Oh,
How
God.
long after a church service of worshiping do we go home and get on our phones and our games and our TV shows and all of that and tune God out?
Yep. This is reflective of who we are. And even how messed up God's leader. Now, Aaron didn't realize that he was the priest and he was this holy man that he was later going to be consecrated as, right? He hadn't been told that yet. But they looked to him as a leader because he was the spokesperson. And so what was the leader doing? Leading them into sin.
Two, these people were following Moses.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't following God.
Right.
And you know, that's what they said, was this Moses,
Mhm.
you know, they say in verse 2, this Moses that we've been following, well, we're following Moses, you're supposed to be following God.
But they didn't really
Right,
understand.
they didn't get it.
Yeah. They didn't understand this concept of God. That's why God was doing all of this so that they would understand the concept. And it was the repetition, and still some of them didn't get it, Steve.
I really like verse 10. Now leave me alone so that my anger can burn against them. I can destroy them. Then I will make you into a great nation.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
the remedy.
Uh-huh. Yep. This is what God would do. I'm going to kill everybody, right? And God does it. But God's showing some of his personality, I would say. Let me give you the key word, sin. It's a great sin. All right. Verse 30. Following day, Moses said to the people, you have committed a grave sin. And that word grave there actually means great. So it's, larger than normal. Now I will go up to the Lord. Perhaps I will be able to atone for you. Could Moses atone for the people in their sin? Absolutely not. But who could? Jesus. Verse 26, 29, and 32 are your key words. And of course, this is, sprinkled throughout the New Testament. in rejecting God and not understanding what God's doing, going against God, worshiping other things, even the law. We've seen today in our Sunday school and in our message how the Pharisees, they really they worshipped after this law. They were blind. They could not see the big picture. And we can't see the big picture until our eyes are open. All right. Anything else in 32? Do you believe, Aaron, that it just jumped out?
It describes him as using a tool to fashion it.
Yeah, he did. He did it all, and then it just jumps out. Not only did you do this, you lied about it. Like Moses was stupid or something. Who's going to buy that? 33. We see that we're assured of God's presence, even in the midst of our sin. And this is a beautiful picture of grace and mercy. Verse 14, my presence will go with you and I will give you rest.
Is presence the key word?
Presence is a key word. Verse 11, 14, and 20 are some of your strong verses. This is where Moses said, God, I want to see you. I need to see you, and what God say. You can't see my glory and live. No human could ever see me and live. We see the power of the glory of God here in chapter 33. Steve?
Just a clarification on verse 7, it talks about the tent of meeting.
Yep.
This is a separate entity from the tabernacle, which is also called the tent of meeting.
Correct.
I ran into that too. I'm like, oh, the tent of meeting is just the same tent of meeting?
And yes.
But interesting, it's a precursor to it, but yet we just had the chapters talking about how to build it.
Yeah.
Tabernacle.
Yeah. And you've got to really pay attention to this tent of meeting definition. And I don't know if we recorded those or not, but we talked about this. Was it Leviticus or I don't know, we taught on it sometime past couple years. And the actual the meanings of that and where it's different. Anything else in 33? I love the picture here. God puts Moses in what? Cleft of the rock. But we also see the I'm not going to say humanity, but we see the physical attributes of God. God walked away from him, and he was walking away, and yet still his hand shielded him.
I like verse 17. It says, the Lord answered Moses, I will do this very thing you have asked, for you have found favor with me, and I know you by name.
Yeah.
Kind of like Jesus knew Zacchaeus.
Yep. It's personal connection. Yep. Beautiful
Also
picture.
comforting that he knows our name too.
Yes, absolutely. And the very hair of it on our heads. Verse 34. Or chapter 34, I should say. We have the second tablets. But now you've got a little bit of a different vision, right? A little bit. It's almost like there's a revival going on here. You got the new stones. Moses comes down. His face is radiant. They see something different. We have tablets of testimony as our key word. You find that in verse 29, which is a strong verse. Moses.
I do have a question. I know we're trying to rush through this, but
Yep, you're good.
so I've heard two different sides on this. On the stone tablets, are there just the 10 Commandments, or is the whole law on the stone tablets?
So I've always interpreted that there are the tablets contain the 10 Commandments, but there may have been more that God wrote down.
Well, I know it does say at some point that Moses wrote stuff down
Right.
before the tablets. So I'm assuming some of the law was on that. But yeah, I remember reading over it. I'm driving again, so I don't have my Bible in front of me. But I remember reading over this and thinking that more than the 10 Commandments were on those tablets.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I've always really just kind of pictured the tablets having the Ten Commandments on it. But we're also thinking tablets, 5 commands on one side, 5 on the other. I mean, these tablets could have been like a whole bunch of,
Verse
like a
28, Verse 28, and he wrote the 10 Commandments, the words of the covenant, on the tablets.
on the tablets, yeah.
Thank you, Jill.
Yeah. And that's verse 28. But I think that Moses couldn't have remembered all of this. So there had to be some writing down. But yeah, the main 10 Commandments
That's what's on
on these. So apparently that's all he broke then when he
And
threw
the
them
words
down.
of the covenant,
Yeah.
is that different than the Ten Commandments?
He wrote down the laws.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a phrase.
He wrote the Ten Commandments,
Not
the
and
words of the covenant
Right.
on the
Yeah,
tablet.
he doesn't say and the words of the covenant.
Right. It's just, yeah. These are the words.
Those
Yep.
are the, okay.
Which some people believe that's what Jesus wrote in the sand when they brought the
The
woman who was
adultery.
taken out of adultery. Yeah. So good questions.
40 days and 40 nights again.
Yes. So Moses spent how many days? 80 altogether, right? Verse 40, saying 40. Notice after the next 40 that they don't magically have a golden calf pop out, do they?
And how about fire?
They realize, hey, wait a minute. There's something different here. Verse 35, or chapter 35, gifts is your key word. And of course, this is what this is about, the gifts of the people for the work. Getting started on the tabernacle and bringing all that together. Verse 21 and 29 are strong verses there. 2 Corinthians 8:12 says, "For if the eagerness is there, the gift is acceptable according to what a person has, not according to what he does not have." God gives us to give. We give out of what God gives us.
Their focus changed.
Absolutely.
They were unified by building this tabernacle.
Yep.
And their focus was no longer on for me, for me, for me. We got riches and we're going to use them,
Yeah.
our skills.
Yep.
They were supported.
And again, what is our unified purpose today?
The church.
Yeah.
Spreading the gospel.
Yeah, the gospel, right? And so we come together, we give to make that happen. 36. The tabernacle begins. You have the coverings and the sockets and the bars and the veil and all of this stuff that's going to go into it. Your key word is work. And God gives us the pattern, shows us what to do. He equips us to do it. And then we go to work. Verse 1, you see that. Verses 5 and 6 are also strong verses. I love verse 5. They're bringing more than what is needed. What are we going to do?
Buy a second human.
Yeah, there we go. We buy a second one. What do you think about verse 6? After Moses gave an order, they sent out a proclamation throughout the camp, "Let no man or woman make anything else as an offering for the sanctuary." So the people stopped.
Well, they didn't need a treasurer.
Wasn't about them having... Later on we see that, don't we? You're identified, the king's identified by how much money he has in the treasury. They're identified by the presence of God and what God has given them. Beautiful picture. Beautiful
That's
picture.
a pattern for churches today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anything else in 36?
This fellow Bezalel was really busy.
Yes. He was a busy dude.
He did a lot.
Yep.
God put so much on those two guys.
Yeah.
They knew how to do everything.
And they handled it well, didn't they? I bet one of them was a trustee and one was a deacon. 37. We're work again. Work. You got making the ark and the mercy seat and table, the candlestick and the altar, all of those things that are getting into the Holy of Holies and really shows the aspects of God. Verse 1, of course, Bezalel, he takes the acacia wood and he exact measurements. Nothing more, nothing less. Verse 9 and verse 6 are also strong verses there. We see here that Christ is the great propitiation for our sins. We see that in the mercy seat as the ark is brought together. And this was the picture and showed the presence of God everywhere they went, as that Ark of the Covenant was in the holy place. 38, we have, again, work. And we're just really kind of continuing on from 37. Brings us down then to 39. And we get into the garments that have been made for Aaron.
Hey, I had to write there. Aaron, the guy who made the calf.
Yep.
Apparently he was completely forgiven and he still became the chief priest.
Absolutely.
And that's pretty heinous.
God can use some pretty bad dudes, can't he? And it again, we see the grace and the mercy of God here. As he uses Moses and Aaron. I mean, Moses is a murderer. He was a fugitive. He was on the Egyptian most wanted posters, you know. And God used both of these men to do great things. Verse 1, garments. Verse 1 is your key verse. 42 and 43 are strong verses that are noted throughout the chapter. Brings us then to 40. The tabernacle set up. God is garment. What?
I don't know what was the word.
Garments.
I said just make it garments.
Yeah, it's garments. Garments, garments, garments. 40? I haven't got there yet. And we're getting there.
Okay.
40. Here we go. We see the tabernacle set up. The glory of God is manifested to his people. We see that in this chapter. Notice that the chapter ends, the book of Exodus ends with the glory of God covering the tent of meeting. What is going to happen at the end of this age? The end of the world. What is going to happen? Jesus Christ is going to come back in all of his glory. We just leave it at that because I don't have time to elaborate. Finished. Verse 33. Finished is your key word. 33. Next, Moses set up the surrounding courtyard for the tabernacle and the altar and hung a screen for the gate of the courtyard. So Moses finished the work. Finished the work. 17, 34, and 38 are your key verses.
I thought 16 was really, really important. Moses did everything just as the Lord had commanded him. 80 days of instruction.
Yeah. And did it all. Yep.
Everything that he was told, he did.
And that's why we know Moses was chosen to be that leader. How many of us would have left something out?
Oh,
By the end of the first 40 days, I would have forgot what was said on the first day.
Yeah.